Good evening, everybody. I trust and I hope that you guys are well. Uh, Good to have you guys once again. Now, what I'm gonna do is that I'm just gonna wait like for 3 minutes. So for those that are just joining, we are waiting for the others that are still gonna join the latecomers. Yes, Princess, I see your mic is sorry, your mic is unmuted. Please, do you have a question? All right, I'm guessing maybe the mic just unmuted. All right, so here today we're gonna be finishing off where we left off from last week. I hope that you guys are enjoying the lectures. If at any point there's anything you're misunderstanding or you don't understand, guys, please do just say it. You can write in the meeting chat or you can unmute your mic and we can talk about it. Right, so we're just going to wait for 2 minutes for the latecomers to arrive. And then once everyone is here, then we are going to start. Right. So for so long, if there's any questions, maybe regarding the course, what we are doing, why are we doing this? Any question? I'm taking your questions right now. If there's any questions, right now is your time to shine as we are waiting.
Hi, Donald.
Yes, hi, Hulisani.
So I'm new to the group. It's my first class today. So I just
Mm-hmm.
wanted to find out, are we using the Menkosa handbook? And what chapter are we on?
Okay, so we are going in line with the Mancosa study guide, yes. That is where I derive my notes, although my notes may go into slightly more detail, where I see that the study guide lacks, and also based off of the experience that I have, I can just add a thing or two just to consolidate our understanding on certain topics. But we are in line with them, with the module guide. And also, um, we are in unit 2. We are doing information network. We are in unit 2. So yesterday, not yesterday, last week, we did unit 1. Right, so now we're in unit 2. I hope you answered, Holisani.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I got you.
All right, you're welcome. So anybody else with a question before I begin? I usually do a countdown in my head, counting down like 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay, there are no questions. So let us proceed. Today we're going to be doing the information network, part of end user computing. So, we always talk about network, right? So, for example, who can I use as an example in this class? I'm just going to pick a random name, right? I'm going to pick a random name and then I'm going to use you as an example, nothing personal, right? So, say I call Rebecca, right? I call Rebecca and then I'm like, so Rebecca suddenly stops hearing me, right? Then Rebecca's like, Donnie, I can't hear you. What's going on your end? And then I'm like, oh, Rebecca, my network is terrible. Right? So that's what a lot of us think a network is, right? They think that network is when you're calling me and I'm sounding like, and then they're like, oh, yes, the network is bad. Or you call me and then there's like a muffled sound, like, oh, like, yeah, the network is bad. But let me bust your bubble today, or rather tonight. And network is something totally different, right? that what you are normally referring to is what's called service, right? You normally should say service is bad, right? A network, rather, is basically a connection or a link between two or more computers that are exchanging files and resources, right? Or they allow electronic communication. That is a network. So in this case, what I can say a network is me, um, for example, me connecting to you, right? Through my computer, even through my phone connected to my computer, that is a network of its own kind, right? So essentially, we are not 100% wrong from saying that a network is bad when you can't hear someone. You're not 100% wrong, but to contextualize it, it's not restricted to just the service or the signal between two devices, right? So it can be a connection between two computers, right? Not just two phones. So, guys, I want to just remind you guys of something. Here is what I always prefer to do. At any point, guys, if you have a question, that's when you unmute your mic and say Donnie. So if you don't have a question, please keep your mic unmuted so that I don't end up thinking that you have a question, right? Maybe I'll hear a sound and I'll think somebody's trying to ask a question, and I'll tend to stop when that happens, right? So if you don't want unnecessary delays or confusion, let us all just keep our mics muted. Thank you. Right. So now that we understand what a network is, right? I remember when I started doing IT, I had to revisit myself to say, what is a network? And say, yes, a network between what network? I'm like, no, man. I need to know what a network is to begin with. I felt so dumb. But it was imperative because when we talk about these things, it's jargon. And many times somebody can end up thinking, oh, I don't understand this topic because you missed one word, right? So from now on, I'll just be saying network this, network that, and you're like, what is a network, dude? Explain to us, right? Okay. So now, a network can be wireless or wired, right? We are more accustomed to wireless networks in our day. To think that, at some point, people would call each other through those telephones. What do they call them? Telephones, right? Those are that you put the number, turning it up by turning it around. It's like krr, 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 krr. I don't know if you guys lived in that generation. Wow, right? So, those were that was imagine at that point you're thinking this is the epitome of evolution and civilization, right? Because you're thinking that, wow, how better can it become? And then boom, somebody's like, now imagine communicating but without a wire or a cable. You're just talking to me, right? You're not connected to anything, but it's wireless. Like, guy, you're crazy. And then come 2025, 2026, we are doing just that, right? To think at some point, phones had had just what do they call them? Buttons, right? Nobody would imagine, back then when they had those Nokias, those on the antenna. I don't know how old you guys are, right? Those on the antenna. I mean, that was the top end stuff. If you had one of those, you were bowling in your days because you like walk and you show it off. They had to like make some pockets where you could put it so that people can see that this guy has a cell phone, right? Right? But now, and then BlackBerry came with touch. You just touch that middle button and things start moving. You know what I'm saying? Things start moving like, wow, can it get better than this? Then boom. Well, they're like, wow, now imagine you are just touching and controlling the screen. You don't need buttons anymore, right? That is how it has happened over time. It's what we call civilization and evolution of technology, right? So it's quite interesting. So that is why we're learning end user, so that we are not still in 1995 or whatever when we were doing landlines, right? And you could only call through landlines. Well, remember back in the day, I think here in South Africa, there are those telephones that used to be like at designated places, and you'd put coins and then you'd communicate through them. I wonder what happened to them. I don't see a lot of those anymore. Some probably got vandalized. But just think, it feels like yesterday, right? It feels like yesterday because that's how technology is evolving. So doing end user allows us to keep up with the evolution of technology, right? So that's just a background for me, right? For those of you that were also not there last week, right? So a network can be wired or wireless, right? So we started with wired and now it's wireless, right? So which means that I can connect to my computer through Bluetooth. I don't need a cable to connect them physically, right? I can connect to your computer or your phone through Bluetooth or whatsoever, right? So a network is not limited to just Cell C or MTN. That's what I was trying to say at the beginning, right? It just consists of two or more computers that are linked to share resources and exchange files, right? So now, a network can be small, right? So by small, we are talking about an office setup or a setup you have at home, right? So some of you are probably watching me through a laptop because I think I remember last week asking who was using laptops, and quite a lot of people confirmed that they were using laptops, right? So that was quite interesting, right? So that is actually a network. Maybe if your phone is connected to your laptop, that is a network right there, right? It's a smaller version of a network, right? So we can also have large networks, moreover, right? So networks can be very large. So by large networks, we'll be referring now to like over a long distance, right? Networks over a long distance. And then also we can have uh, uh, even bigger networks than that, right? If we're talking maybe something which is metropolitan, right? We can have something which is now which connects the whole world, right? Which is the internet. So the internet on its own is a network, right? Now I want you to know, you never knew, right? Think of it, internet, right? So internet works. So it's a connection of multiple networks, right? So now you understand what the actual internet is, right? When you're going to Google, what is going on? Google is what is the internet, right? It's a connection of multiple internet multiple networks, right? So the net in internet just stands for networks, right? So that means that it's a connection of my computer to your computer. Someone that's in the US can be connected to my computer right now. That is a long distance, right? So that makes it the internet. I can also be connected to someone in China, right? So that's what the internet is and how it came about. It's a bunch of networks connected together over a wide geographical area, right? So we are gonna discuss these types of networks in a nutshell, right? So that we can understand and have an idea. So if at any point, guys, you don't understand, please feel free to ask, right? So we have what we call a local area network, or you see it as LAN, right? So I'm sure you've seen, I don't know if you've seen this abbreviation before. It stands for local area network, right? So basically, it's a connection of a devices within a relatively small geographic area, right? So it could be a home, office building, school, or a campus, right? So these type of networks, they enable the sharing of resources such as files or hardware devices that may be needed by multiple users. However, it is limited in size. It typically spans a few hundred meters and no more than a mile. So it doesn't go over, let's just say 1.6 0.63 kilometers, right? It doesn't go let me just say over 2 kilometers, right? It's usually a small area, right? So then we have what we call a metropolitan area network, right? A metropolitan area network now, it's much larger than the LAN, right? Than the local area network. It's much larger, right? And it usually spans like the size of a city or a large campus. So a metropolitan area network, right? It usually spans a distance of about 5 to 50 kilometers in diameter, right? So, like, let's take for example, um, an example that you'll be familiar with. We have the Ekurhuleni municipality, right? So, and then we have the Johannesburg municipality, right? And then we have the Tshwane municipality as well, right? These are different municipalities, right? So think of that as being a metropolitan area network, right? That kind of a size of a network. So it's large, but it also has a restriction. And then the biggest that we have in the entire world is what we call the WAN or the wide area network, right? So for now, we should now be familiar with this one, right? It covers a large geographical area such as a country, continent, or even the whole world, right? So the internet covers the whole world, like I said. You can talk to someone in the UK right now, right? I have relatives that are there. If I call right now, I can talk to them, right? Is that a question over there? I'm hearing an unmuted mic. I will just pause. Is that a question? I don't want to overshadow anyone with a question. Okay, maybe it was an unmuted mic. All right, no, that's fine then, guys. So one is basically two or more local area networks connected. So the LAN can be many miles apart, right? So to cover greater distances, one, which is wide area networks, may transmit data over least high-speed phone lines or wireless links, such as satellites, right? And then the most well-known one is the network, is the internet. Sorry. So we have like certain cables that affect the bandwidth. Some of them they go even under the ocean, if you didn't know, right? And recently there was almost like an internet shutdown because one of those cables got damaged, but at least the damage wasn't enough to totally shut down the internet. It quickly got repaired, right? So it also, there are like some cables involved because it covers great distances, right? And there are boosters, right? So like if you find out that if there is no 5G booster in your area, they'll tell you that, okay, we don't have 5G coverage in this area, right? So that is basically how it works. Now, we have what we call a personal area network, which is basically a smaller version of local area network, right? So now this is for like your personal environment. So maybe you are listening to me through your headphones, which are connected wirelessly to your laptop or even through wires. And also your laptop is connected to your phone, to your mouse and your printer. And maybe there's another laptop in the house you're connected to. That becomes a personal area network, right? It's just a connection of different devices, right? So now, another interesting topic which has come up and surfaced. Remember, end user, we are staying up to date, right? So we also have what we call 3D printing now. So 3D printing process involves two main steps, which are scanning an object to create a digital 3D model, and then using that model to print a physical replica of the object. Right, so who knew that in 2026 we could be able to do this, right? It actually came about a few years ago, right? It's not something that came and emerged this year. So 3D printing is of interest to us and it's something which is also examinable, right? just to tell you that. Right. So the process of 3D printing is that firstly you must scan. So you need what we call a 3D scanner, right? Because what are we doing in the 3D? We are basically scanning an object, right? And then we create a 3D model. So let's say we wanted to create a replica maybe of me, right? I would first have to get scanned. That would have to be one big 3D printer, by the way, right? Or maybe a replica of my phone. It would have to get scanned first, right? And then the printer can create an exact 3D model, right? So using the image it would have scanned, right? And then it can print a replica. So now a replica, okay, English. Let me just explain that. A replica is a copy, it's just another word for a copy, right? So 3D scanners, right? So with the 3D scanner, you're able to create a digital copy. So this is it's not yet the actual copy, but it's a digital copy, which means that it's in a software of some sort, right? So you scan the object, right? And then you create a digital copy of the object, right? And then from there, you basically use a 3D modeling software. So now there are different softwares, right, to do this. You can use a 3D modeling software where you're now taking that digital image and then you're using this software to basically link it now to the 3D printer. Right. So this modeling software is used to create digital representations of objects or scenes in 3 dimensions, right? So this digital image you'd have created by scanning. So these are different types of 3D scanners, by the way, guys. I just put these pictures here to show you. This is how they look, right? So this you'll be doing on your computer now, right? You can do it on your computer. Now you are basically observing how it looks 3D, whether the scan missed any details and whatnot, right? And then 3D printer finally, right? So now what happens with the 3D printer is that you have to slice a 3D model to make it printable. So what are we doing when we are slicing? It's not like we are slicing bread or cheese. I know people love food, right? When I say slice, people are thinking, food, right? Especially if you're hungry right now. I'm sorry. We are not slicing cheese and burger or slices of bread. Ne? So basically, it's a similar concept though. Slicing is when you're dividing a 3D model into hundreds of or thousands of horizontal layers and is done with a slicing software because this 3D printer needs to be very specific. So the more slices it does, the more specific it is, basically. Right. So sometimes it's possible to slice a 3D file within a 3D modeling software or in the 3D printer itself. Right. So it is also possible that you are forced to use a certain slicing tool for a certain 3D printer because of compatibility issues, right? So that is something that you need to also know. So when your 3D model is then sliced, you are ready to feed it to your 3D printer. This now can be done via USB, SD, or even Wi-Fi, right? Because some 3D printers can connect to Wi-Fi now. Things are getting so advanced, right? So it really depends on what 3D printer brand you work with. So when a file is uploaded in a 3D printer, the object is ready to be 3D printed layer by layer. So you see why you need to slice because it's created layer by layer. Right, so good day. I just joined the session now. I appreciate the recorded presentation. Thank you. Certainly, Honor. I'm seeing Honor as your username, so that's what I'll call you. I hope you don't mind with that. Right? I always call students with what I see on their username. Others I see iPhone, others are Samsung sometimes. This time it's Honor, so yeah, there's also Samsung here. Do you know that Chinese song which is like Shine Shu Dung Shu Samsung Mo July San Right, I'm sure you know that one, guys. So now I'm not teasing you, Mr. Samsung. or Mrs. Samsung, I don't know. But yes, that's what I would tend to call you guys. I hope you don't mind that, right? So now, basically, uh, when you then upload this file into 3D printer, the object is ready to be 3D printed layer by layer. That's why we are slicing it. See? So here is an image of an industrial 3D printer. So this is industrial. As you can see, it's quite big. It can make pretty big objects, right? So 3D printing is basically a simpler, or let me say a faster way of making replicas, right? Say you want to copy something fast, replicate. Maybe who knows, in the next 20 years, there will be 3D printing people and people that are coming out and cloning and all of that scary stuff, hey? But maybe in the next 20 years, it won't be so scary. Who knows, right? So this is an industrial 3D printer. I'm sure you can guess. I want you to guess how much it costs. I just want to know. How much do you think this thing costs? Don't go on the internet. Ne? Just tell me how much you think it costs. Come on, guys, let's type in the chat. We must engage with one another. I also want to know if you guys are listening. Because another thing is that sometimes students, they will be so quiet and it will be like they are sleeping in class. I'll end up thinking people are sleeping. Okay, 500K. Hulisan is saying 500K. Louisa is saying 500K. Right? Okay. Above 100K honor. Okay, that's smart. That's smart, right? Okay. Above 100K. What are the others saying then? Come on, guys. This is an industrial one, right? So it's for advanced things. It's very, very advanced. So the person that okay, so I'm just gonna like whatever you guys are saying. So Hulisani 500K, right? Louisa 500K, Ona 90 lies above 100K, uh Zinande 150K. And then is Murungwa not smart? Whom is Murungwa, if I may ask? Or maybe I missed something. Is Murungwa not smart? And then Rebecca, 35K. Princess, 100K. Samsung, 150K. Manu, I can't pronounce that. Manu, I'll just call you Manu. 200K. Tembinkosi, above 300K. Bui, 200K. So now let me tell you, I just want to surprise you. So these things, depending on the quality, they can go to as much as as 12 million people. Let me just say as much as almost 11 point something million, right? That's how expensive they can get, right? Depending on which one you want. Okay, so it's all about your pocket, right? They say Fagimali uzobona, right? So yeah, in this world now money can buy you a 3D printer. Right, but thank you guys for all participating. I want to see who was the closest. So this one here, it would be about maybe let me just say we can put it around almost a million then. This one here. Right? So these things are pretty expensive, guys. So now that's the goal, to get a 3D printer, right? Get a 3D printer to flex. If you don't have a 3D printer, you are broke. I'm joking. Right, so that is 3D printing. I don't know if there's any question on this topic, especially particularly 3D printing. Please, you may feel free to ask. Please feel free to ask if there is a question. Is there a question? Okay, so that means that we are all doing all right. All right, that's fine then. Then I'm happy to hear your silence, guys. I'm happy to hear your silence, right? Because wow, I mean, how can I not love the sound of silence? So, um, now let us proceed to the next unit. So for now, I'm just going to cut my screen and then we are going to do the next thing. We are going to proceed. So we're going to be moving pretty fast, right? As long as you guys don't ask questions, then we are going to go. Don't worry about the lecture two then, right? I basically divided lecture one into two, so don't worry about that. Okay, so now we are doing unit two, right? Okay, so lecture one, I'm sorry about that. Somebody had asked in the beginning what unit that was. That was actually unit one. I'm really sorry about that because now this is unit two, using the computer and managing files, right? This is going to get really interesting. So I hope you're all paying attention. Right. So we have what we call, in a computer, we have what we call icons, right? Oh, yes. Just feel free to compliment my slides, by the way, guys. I know they are really nice. I would also love to hear that because, wow, you don't just prepare these at the blink of an eye, you know. So, yes. And I'm going to teach you guys as well how to use PowerPoint. It's going to be quite interesting, right? I mean, you can see my slide there. They're so good, right? So you must expect it. It's gonna be nice. Right. So we have icons, right? Icons, these are what we call small pictures. Thank you, Manu. Right. So these are small pictures or pictograms on a computer screen, and they all represent programs, folders, files, and shortcuts. All right, so let me just do something. I just want to pause my screen share. I want to show you something. So some of these things, they are better shown than just said, right? Because if I just say like, icons are these, icons are that. Right, so let me start a new share. Okay. All right. I just want to show you guys these things so that we can really understand them. Right. So as you can see here, these are what we call icons. This small picture. It's showing us a folder, right? Okay, am I sharing the screen? Oh, I paused it. Sorry, guys. So here, as you can see, this is showing my lectures for end user, right? So these are different icons. So we're talking about these little pictures. They're showing me this is a folder. So we're going to explain what a folder is, right? A folder, take it literally, right? A folder is like an envelope where you put like a lot of files, right? You know those big brown envelopes? Not the one you're thinking about for bribing. No, the one we're talking about the envelope where you put files and documents and whatsoever. It's similar. So if this is a folder, as you can see, it looks like one of those envelopes where you would put files. Because inside the folder is where you would find files, as you can see. So this is a folder. I open and then I have different files. And in a folder, you can have another folder. Interesting, right? So these are icons, right? And then these it's showing the different files, right? The different files. So let me just go back to my lectures. So those are icons. Anybody with a question what icons are? I thought as much, right? No one, right? Okay. Guys, don't feel stupid to ask questions. You are paying money for this. And then imagine being shy to ask a question, right? When you are literally paying money, like I would be like, wow. I would want to ask, even if it's a stupid question, even if it's something that that you've discovered recently, maybe about technology and whatsoever. We can talk, right? Because it's interesting. It's end user. It's things we interact with, not just at work, right? Our children use these things, and sometimes they use them better than us. They end up showing us things we don't know. Like you put a password on your phone, but that person just manages to open that phone. How? Right? So we need to know these things, guys. We need to know these things. So now, working with files. What is a file? A file is a set of digital data. English, right? It's digital data, right? So it's basically data which is in a computer, right? By digital, we are talking about digits. Computers, they understand things in binary, right? Which is ones and zeros, right? So when you're talking about digital data, we're talking about data which is in a computer, right? So that's what a file is. Each file has a name and an icon, like I've shown you, right? And then this is assigned by the operating system. Now I want to make things interesting. From our previous lecture, those that were there, those that joined today, I excuse you, but you should know this because those that were there last week are going to explain for us. For those who were there last week, please explain to us what is the operating system and give me an example of an operating system. Let's go, guys. The guys that are new today are looking up to you guys to explain to them. So please do your brothers a favor. Let me see if there are any familiar names that I've seen. Okay, let me not put anyone on the spotlight. Please expose yourself for what is an operating system. Right. Let's see. Okay, Princess. Princess is smart. And I seen your name. I wanted to call you out, but then I was like, okay. Okay, Princess. So Android. Android is an operating system. That's an example. So she's like, I'm gonna give an example, but I'm not gonna explain what it is. Okay, does anybody want to explain what an operating system is? So Android is an example of an operating system. But what is it? What is an operating system? Because think of it, an operating system, Operating system is the one that's assigning the files an icon, right? So which means that it has to be built in to the computer, right? Or the device. Because if you look at, for example, what can I use as an example? Right, yes, a good example. If you look at your gallery on your iPhone, right? And if you look at it on your Android, let me not say anything. On your Android, right? On your Android, which takes crusty pictures. I couldn't hold myself. Sorry. If you look at it on your Android, what's going to happen is that you see that the gallery icons are different, right? So I already showed you guys what an icon is, right? So when you go to your gallery on Apple, right, or iOS, it's this other interesting spectrum of colors. On Android, it's like this other mountain or something. I think you know those icons, guys. I don't know. Is there anybody understanding? Please just confirm if there is one person at least who knows what I'm talking about. When we're talking about icons for your gallery, if you've ever used an iPhone and an Android, or you've been borrowed an iPhone by someone, maybe, right? So, and then you see the icon that they are different. So, what assigns that is the operating system, right? It's an operating system. It cannot be exactly the same, right? So, now, what is an operating system, people? I was just doing that to remind you. Anybody? What is an operating system? Let's go, let's go. Now, I'm singing now. You know why I'm singing? Because sometimes when I'm when I'm busy with my newborn, and she's crying, and I'm doing everything I can do. Like I'm busy, and she's like she can't hear me. She'll be like even wah, and then I end up singing now. I'll start just singing whatever comes to mind. Please stop crying. Please stop crying. Please stop crying. So now I'm gonna talk to you guys like I'm talking to my little baby. Because you guys are not answering me. So I'll say, what is an operating system? What is an operating system? Come on, guys. Let's interact unless we don't know. Okay, maybe we don't know. So I'll explain it once again. It means that we need to revisit it. Right? We need to revisit the difference between an operating system and a software system, right? So an operating system is basically what it's like, for example, Android, right? And Apple, right? But for computers, we have okay, Windows Explorer is a web browser, and we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that, but it's not an operating system, right? It's not. It's like, for example, Safari is the web browser for 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 iPhone, right? For those of you that use iPhones, right? And then you have most of you guys that use Androids use Chrome, right? So Windows Explorer, it's also a feature which is mainly found on Windows. So Windows is actually an operating system, right? Windows is actually an operating system, just like our iOS and Linux. Somebody said they were using Linux in the previous class, right? It's also a different operating system. Finally, someone said it. Zenade Nadlana. Sorry, I don't. Sorry. I hope I did not butcher your name. Zenande. Yeah, Zenande. Zenande finally said it. You are a star. You deserve a star. Let me give you a sweet. Yes, that's a sweet right there. Digital sweet for you, right? Programs that control the operation of a computer system, right? Though that is what we call operating software, right? So an operation system is basically what controls those programs, right? So you have your Windows, you have your iOS, right? And these come with different operating softwares, right? So that is what I want us to revisit. So files are placed within folders. I've explained this, right? To browse computer for files and folders, we use Windows Explorer, right? Windows Explorer is simply that search taskbar, and then when you search, that is Windows Explorer, right? It displays a hierarchical view of folders and files. I was gonna show you my Windows Explorer, but then you know, as the risk, you people might end up seeing my search history, and then now, yeah, it's not gonna be so nice, right? But basically, okay, let me see if I can show you guys. I just want to make sure that, okay, there's nothing that's going to make me look questionable here. Okay, so Windows Explorer. Just give me a second as I check that so that I do not end up now like, hey, that tutor. Did you see what you were searching? Sometimes we search for the dumbest of things, guys. Just forgive me. Forgive me. So I'll just show you here. Right, let me try to cast my screen. Some of you probably wondering, what is the Windows Explorer? Okay. All right, let's go. Uh, okay. So the Windows Explorer would be this. You see so here is my Windows Explorer, right? So I can search for any file here and I can open files, right, just from here, right? And as you can see, there's the Microsoft icon right there, right? So let me quickly run away before your eyes see too much, right? So working with files, right? So now we have what we call desktops. You would not be able to see me or hear me if it wasn't for what we call a desktop, right? Desktops have not always been graphical, right? So, in other words, desktops were not always having images like what you can see now, my nice pictures that I can put sometimes. That's not how desktop used to be. They used to be mainly text based, right? So, there was a text-based desktop which was called Dext. Eish, yo, sorry guys, English is not my mother tongue, ne? Deskmate. I was now twisting and turning. Hey, yeah, ne, I hope you're not laughing at me there wherever you are. Like, hey, Mr. Desk. Right? Deskmate was released by Tandy, which is a company, right, in the US. So, however, as time has progressed, desktops have become more graphical, right? The desktop further progressed from being just graphical to being active, right? So when a desktop is graphical, it's called GUI, right? So now you can even see things moving. Like when I put my Windows Explorer there, Aish, I'm sure you saw some of the files flipping and twisting and jumping and whatever, right? That is a graphical desktop and it's also active. Right. So, having spoken about that, that's the basic, right? So, some of you know the desktop is the monitor that you normally use because remember, if you're using like, for example, a PC, right? Those computers with the what do they call it? It's that head, or is it a head, or that what do they call it, man? That thing, that the the word just escaped me. Sorry, guys. So, but if you're using those old computers, which it's separate. There's a desktop, right, which is just a screen separately, and then there's the hardware part, which is the PC, right? And then you connect with an HDMI cable because you cannot use it alone like that, right? That that is an example of a desktop right there, right? So now, what is a virtual desktop? Right? What is a virtual desktop? A virtual desktop refers to a desktop operating system such as a Windows 10, right? So, for example, I use Windows 10, right? That runs on top of an enterprise hypervisor. Right. So, we are probably thinking, "Hmm, hmm, we have just imagine I'm describing a word, and in the statement I'm using to describe that phrase, or you already don't understand some of the words I'm using. You're just like, I give up. This is why education is so hard, school and whatever. Like, but it's not like that. It's actually my fault if you guys don't understand what I'm teaching, right? Because I need to explain to you what a hypervisor is, right? I need to explain to us what is a hypervisor before I can even explain the whole thing about virtual desktops, right? So, what is a hypervisor? Does anybody want to try before I do? Enterprise hypervisor. So, a virtual desktop refers to an operating system, right? Such as Windows 10, right? That runs on top of an enterprise hypervisor, right? So I don't know if there's anybody who wants to try. Unless you're searching on Google, you're probably searching on Google right now. Stop, stop, stop. It's okay. Right? It's okay. Maybe if you had known it before, but it's my duty to teach you what this is, right? So an enterprise hypervisor is basically a software layer that is installed directly on a physical server's hardware. So now what is a server? Right? I'm now describing two things, right? So you are putting, how can I put this? You are basically putting the functions of an of you're putting a software, but not on top of an operating system. So say we remove the operating system of Windows 10, right? On our computer. Say maybe you're using iOS. Say if we remove iOS or Windows 10, what remains, right? What remains is what is called the hypervisor, right? So the hypervisor basically allows us, right, to then be able to perform the functions of a computer, but without the operating system being directly on the computer, right? So what it then allows us to do is that we can use these virtual desktops to basically transmit screen images and keyboard and mouse inputs between the user's device and the server on which that virtual desktop runs. So think of, for example, using a computer on your. So a hypervisor can be a software or it can be a physical device, right? A hypervisor can be a software or it can be a physical device. So basically, say we remove Windows 10 from your computer, right? And then we use a hypervisor to then put a software of maybe something, a server which is in America, right? So let me give you a realistic scenario so that we can understand this in an example format. So say that you work at a certain company, right? You work at a certain company, right? And they cannot afford you losing their information. What do? They basically enable you to use a computer which they create for you, in other words, right? So that's the desktop part, right? Which they create for you, and then you can perform whatever functions. So maybe you find out that the server is not even here in South Africa. Maybe the company I'm working for is in America, right? But I can use that computer, right, here in South Africa through this virtual desktop, right? So I can use a literal hypervisor, which is a physical device, or it can be a software that I install in my computer to act as a hypervisor. So which means that I can log, like similar to how you log in to your work account, right? But now imagine, as in it's a work computer and you are logging into it. So everything which is work related is in there, right? But it's virtual, it's not physical. Think of it. So instead of literally carrying your work computer everywhere, right? There is now a software which can allow you to use the work computer but on your laptop, right? You can now use the work computer but on your laptop. That's what the hypervisor enables us to do. Right. I don't know if there's any question now regarding this. Please ask. I know I usually get questions here with a lot of my students like, what is a hypervisor, Tony? I don't understand. Do you mean this? Do you mean that? So why you're probably wondering, why do we have to deal with these things? Why do we have hypervisors, right? I mean, why not just walk around with the work laptop? I mean, we are used to being given what do they call this? To being given work laptops. Ne? They give you a work laptop. They're like, yeah, I'm gonna give you a work laptop. And you're like, yay, hooray. Right? But here's the tricky part with that. Imagine if you are to be robbed, ne? And then all the information in your laptop gets stolen. And maybe you are an important person in the laptop. Maybe you're the manager or you're a CEO, right, in the company, and the information gets stolen. So many things could go wrong. Think of maybe the CEO of Coca-Cola, his laptop being stolen and it has the secret recipe of Coca-Cola, right? That's a lot, that's a big loss, right? So what a hypervisor enables is that even if you lose your laptop or whatsoever, right, you can still access your work files because you are not directly or physically connected, right, to like a physical computer, but you are just accessing it through your laptop, right? So you can get another laptop and reconnect to the server, right? So I don't know. Is there any question, guys? I can clarify, but you have to ask questions.
Johnny,
Yes.
did you give us an example of a hypervisor? Or can you give us one, please?
Okay. So Louisa, um, now with the hypervisor, it can either be physical, so it can be an actual device. There is a device, right? Or it can be even your own computer, right? You can install a hypervisor software, right? So you can basically download a hypervisor software. Like for example, say on my computer, let me give you a good example of a virtual desktop, right? So say on my computer, I wanted to use the Linux, or maybe you know it as Ubuntu, right? The Linux operating system, right? I can do that on my computer, but I need to have an application. I used to have it. I don't know if I still do. I haven't checked it in a long time, right? I can actually use Ubuntu operating software on my laptop, right? So that is what a hypervisor enables. It just enables my computer to basically change function, right? So it's now similar to saying you want to log in to your workplace. How can I put it? As in to your workplace server. So you're probably wondering what is a server, by the way, right? So a server is simply a very powerful computer or a software that serves information. Think of the word server. It serves information, right? So the information is not coming from your laptop, but it's coming from a virtual place, right? You're connected wirelessly to this place, right? That's where you're accessing the information. So your computer becomes the client, and then whatever the server is the one that is now giving you the information. So it means that this information is not directly in your computer. It's actually in that server, which is maybe at your workplace, right? But you can access it through a hypervisor that is connected to your workplace. Did I make it clear?
Yeah, I get it. It's not crystal, but I get the idea.
Okay, this is a very maybe when I show you guys the 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 diagram, you can then understand. But there are different types of hypervisors, right? It's just that if I tell you the names, it will be no use, right? Because it's a software. It's just like an application which you can install. There's what we call the Microsoft Hyper-V and KVM. There are different types of hypervisors. So those are the softwares you can install for your computer to basically work as a hypervisor, right? So a hypervisor, all it needs is connection to the server. It doesn't need a lot, right? So you can connect a hypervisor to just a desktop without the PC, in other words, right? Yes, that's a good example. You can connect a hypervisor without the PC, right? You can just connect it to a desktop or even your TV, for example, right? You connect it to your TV and now you can access whatever is at work. Think of that. You just need to connect to the server at work. Right. So here's an example, right? An illustration. So this is the hardware which is at work, right? The hypervisor, and then these are the thin clients, the desktops, right? So the hypervisor is connected to the hardware, right? And then your hypervisor connects to the desktop and it simply allows information from here directly here. So the information is not this side, it's stored here, right? So even if I lose this monitor, right, or this computer, I'm not gonna lose what is here, the information, right? This just allows me to access and manipulate the information, but the information in essence is actually here. This is the point where I was saying that if your laptop gets stolen, your work laptop, right, you can still access the information that or your project that you're working on because they are stored in the server, right? You are just using your laptop as a hypervisor. So that's the software they use for virtual desktop for preservation of information, so that work doesn't have to go backwards because you lost your laptop and you got robbed. Because we live in South Africa, hey, it's a common thing now, right? So the hypervisor is what allows that. It facilitates the transfer of information from the server to the client. Right. So say this hardware here was using Windows 11, right? And your laptop is iOS, right? You can use a hypervisor to basically connect to this hardware, and what you'll be seeing on your desktop is actually Windows 11 stuff. Right. Do you get it now? Is it becoming clearer with the diagram? Is it becoming clearer?
Hi, Donald.
Yes, Kholisani.
CRS or One Touch where like you can, or well, in my company we use CRS to access like stuff like your payslip, where you can also apply for your leaves, all those things. Is it the same thing?
I
I
beg
mean,
your
you
pardon.
can
Use
also
what do
use
they
it.
call it?
We call it the CRS or One Touch. There's One Touch and the CRS where you can access things like your payslip, where you can apply for your leave days or apply for internal roles or whatever. Is it like the same thing?
It's very similar, but it's not the same thing, right? Okay, I just want to ask, are there features where you can also like work on that platform, as in you are literally doing everything to say that you are just as if you're working on your computer, but it's being stored in the server at work?
Nah, no.
It's a similar concept, but then it's not the same thing in this case, but it's very
The
similar.
SharePoint, are you talking about the SharePoint where we can, are you talking about the SharePoint?
Y- Yes, something like that. More like the SharePoint, right?
Oh, okay, okay.
Yes. So basically, you're not working on your laptop, but you're actually working at work, right? And you are
Yeah.
storing these things there, right? So basically, it allows collaboration and all of that, right? Because the files are not in your laptop. So someone else can actually access those files. Even your employer can access whatever you are working on. You see, that's the benefit of a hypervisor. Rather than me asking you, hey, can you send me this? What? I just go and log in the way you were, and then I find everything, right? So, I hope now it's clear. I'm sure now it's much clearer. It's one of the complicated topics I usually teach. So I know when people struggle with this one, yeah, it usually happens like that. So you guys stole my 3 minutes. So I'm gonna steal 3 minutes for you. No, I'm gonna steal 5. Let's just end at 10 past. let's see how far we can go. But my goal is for you guys to understand, not just to finish, right? So that is what, if everyone is on the same page, then that's awesome. So you see now about the virtual desktop, what's nice is that you can actually work on your phone, right? So you can access the files at work through your phone. Imagine, right? Because the server is at work, the mainframe, the actual hardware, right, is at work. All you need to do is just to connect, right? You can do it through even a desktop, just a desktop and a hypervisor software. You can actually connect to what's going on at work, or you can do it through a laptop, right? So that's how interesting it is, right? So it means that even if you lose your laptop, you can still find and continue your work through your phone in the temporal meantime, right? I have a friend who actually they use this software at their workplace, right? So they can actually control what he does on his computer, right? They can actually control what he does on his computer. And it's a company in the US actually, right? But they can control what he does on his computer. So which means that at a certain point you can just see your mouse moving, and this arrow moving. That's the virtual desktop, right? It's maybe your supervisor, which is like, okay, I want to fix this for you. Maybe you are struggling with something. They can do it through your computer. That's how technology has evolved. Now that makes work so much easier, right? Because they can easily follow up on what you're doing. They don't need to be worried. Is this guy working or what? Right? Because they can already see on their own. Right. So now we also have what we call software installing apps, right? So we can install
Wait, Donald.
soft. Yes.
Yeah, you mean the hypervisor, is it similar to like this application called AnyDesk, whereby I can control my laptop with my phone?
Yes, like any desk. So basically, your phone is the client, and then
Yeah.
your computer is the server. Get it? You getting the
Okay.
concept now?
Yeah, I get it.
Awesome, awesome, Tembin, because that was a good one. That was a good one. Yes, it's basically like that. So in that case, your computer is the server, right? And then your phone becomes the client. So now you can access and control whatever is on your laptop through your phone. The only thing is that your laptop actually has to be on, right? So now that's why sometimes they can tell you that our servers are down and then you can't do certain functions, right? It's because the servers are not physically where you are. They'll need to fix them where they are. Then you can access the files again. Right, so we can download software from from the web, right? Although that's very dangerous, we should be careful, right? We can also download from CDs or DVDs, right? Or we can use the Windows 10 desktop. We have what we call Windows, what do they call it? Microsoft Store, right? Where you can download apps, right? However, when you're downloading from the internet, download only from trusted publishers and retail websites. Don't just download, otherwise you end up having viruses. So that is it from me today, guys. I hope you've understood what I was trying to teach. And I don't know if there's any question. If there's any question, please do ask now so that you don't leave here with a question mark. Like, okay, so I'm just gonna keep quiet a little bit and give you guys time to think. And you can also write in the meeting chat. I'll be checking that as well. Any question on what we have covered so far? Right, so that's awesome. That's awesome. Yes, certainly. I will share my beautiful slides with you guys. Don't worry. my beautiful slides, which I worked hard for. I will share them with you guys. They are really interesting. So, you can work hand in hand with the study guide, right? If you feel like there isn't enough detail, but that's why we are doing the lectures, right? We are doing the lectures so that I will explain and present to you guys. But since you want them, I will share them with you guys. All right. So, since there are no other questions, guys, it's been nice. I will meet you again probably next week, same time, same place. Until we meet again, enjoy. It's Friday tomorrow. Ha, weekend. Please enjoy your weekend, y'all, and have a good time. Should I say that? Well, not too much of a good time, but yeah. Enjoy, do good things. I mean, yeah. I suck at goodbyes, guys. Please, all right, we'll see you next week until we meet again.